Okay, we're going to start building the Husky 307 diaphragm pump back up, and we're going to start by reinstalling the diaphragm shaft O-rings. And we're just going to put a little bit of the lube that comes with the kit on that O-ring, and we're just going to put one on each side. I'm just going to drop it down inside. Now this one, we have not replaced the bearings, so we got to push that O-ring through so it makes contact with the recessed area between the bearing and the housing of the diaphragm pump. So we're just going to kind of, I've got my finger down inside so I can't push it all the way through, and then I'm just going to gently push it down into that recessed area. Now if you've pulled out the bearings, then obviously the O-rings are just going to slide down into position. Then you're going to set the bearing on top, and using a soft mallet you're just going to pound that bearing down into the housing until it's flush with the housing. Okay, once you have the O-rings installed on both sides, then what we're going to do is we will take the diaphragm shaft, and again we're just going to put a little lube on the shaft, and we'll just slide it all the way through. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and reassemble the diaphragms. We're going to have our bolt that goes through the front side of the diaphragm and the air side, and make sure that you put the rounded side of the air plate towards the diaphragm. And we're just going to take a little bit of a medium strength thread locker. We'll get that one started, and we'll build up the other side. And again, rounded side towards the diaphragm, and it'll actually say on this side, air side. And a little bit of the medium strength thread locker again. All right, then we're going to come back with the 2 1/2-inch sockets. And I'm going to start with just a couple of sockets, but we are going to have to come back with a torque wrench and torque this down. Okay, so once you get these down to where they're starting to tighten up, we're going to go ahead and replace one of the sockets with the torque wrench, and we're going to torque this 75 to 85 inch-pounds. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and put the fluid covers on, and when we put the fluid covers on, we want the clamps and the bolts for the clamps to be going to the down position or towards the bottom or the inlet of the pump. The way to identify which side is on the inlet is if you look at the air valve, the air cup is on the bottom side. So you want that air plate to be on the bottom. So this is the bottom side of the pump. First thing we're going to do is we're going to install the clamps on the inside, making sure that the bolts are pointing downwards. And then we're going to go ahead and install the fluid covers. The fluid covers have notches on them, and that way you're ensured that they get lined up properly for the manifolds. And then once we have that fluid cover on, I'm simply going to take this clamp, and we'll move it on and get it started. Then we'll do the other side and move that clamp on. You might want to move it to the other side so you can see a little bit easier on the clamps, bolts. So once we have the clamps in position, I'm going to come in with my ground strap, and the next thing I want to do is, before I put my bolts on, is I just want to take a little bit of a thread lubricant and put a little bit of lubricant on these threads. Okay, then I'm just going to secure the 2 nuts that hold the clamp and the ground strap in position, and once they start tightening up, we're going to come in with a torque wrench, and we're going to torque these 50 to 60 inch-pounds. Now you can either do that with a deep well socket, or you can come with a crow's foot, and that's what I'm going to use today. And again, you want to tighten these 50 to 60 inch-pounds. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the manifolds and the balls and checks back in. Okay, we're going to start to reassemble the inlet and the outlet manifolds, and we're going to start with the inlet. Remember, the pump is upside down right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by installing the inner O-ring, and we'll do it on both sides. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and install the cages, and remember we're doing this upside down right now. And once the cages are in, we'll put the ball checks and then the two seats. And then after that, we'll put in the outer O-rings. From there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the inlet manifold on. Now keep in mind that you can put this inlet manifold back on in either direction. So for reference, just remember which side you pulled it off when you do pull it off. And then we'll put the feet in place, and we're going to come back with the bolts. And we're just going to slide them all the way through so they come out to the top side. Okay, once all 4 bolts are in place, then we're just going to flip the pump back so it's right side up again, and then we can start building the outlet manifold. We'll start with 2 O-rings. And now this time, since the pump is in its upright position, we're going to put the checks in next, and then the balls, then our ball cages, and then the last 2 outer O-rings. All right, then we're going to come in with the outlet manifold, and keep in mind the outlet manifold can go on the same side as the inlet or the opposite. It's application dependent. Then we'll come back with our 4 nuts and we'll tighten those down to secure the manifolds. And we'll just start with a 1/2 inch socket until they're secure. And then we'll come back and torque these 50 to 60 inch-pounds. And keep in mind once again that there's a torque pattern that we want to follow when we tighten these. And when we tighten them, we're going to start on one side, 50 to 60 inch-pounds, and then go to the opposite corner. We'll come back and then do the opposite corner once again. Okay, now we have the diaphragm pump built all the way back up, except for the air valve. So we're just going to flip this down at the side. We'll put the air valve back in, make sure that the O-ring is still intact on the air valve, and make sure the saddle falls down into the slot for the diaphragm shaft. Once in position, we'll come through with our 6 screws once again, and we'll secure those screws and torque them down 8 to 14 inch-pounds. Okay, and that's the conclusion of the repair of the Husky 307 diaphragm pump.